Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Scholl. I serve as the Director of Wellness and Communications for the SCEA Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. We call ourselves COOL for short, and you can find out everything you ever wanted to know about COOL on the website right here at the bottom of the screen, cool.us. That's CEWL.us. And of course, right now, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be doing this live stream without a GPS grant from the National Education Association and our collaborative partner, the SCEA, the state affiliate of the NEA. And right now, you can join the SCEA at jointhescea.org. And it is our early enrollment period. So you would get the rest of June, all of July, all of August at no cost to you. And then your dues would be started to be withdrawn in September. So it's a great time for you to join. If you are even on the fence, this is the best time for you to join. Of course, anytime is a good time to join the South Carolina Education Association, but right now is a great time for you to jump in and join the movement. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the SCEA's legislative agenda, and we're going to be examining bills that are being debated at the State House, and we're going to be talking about what the SCEA's priorities are around those bills and the legislation that is being currently debated in the State House. So to help us do that, we have Annie Wilson, Caleb Mickler, Dr. Dena Cruz, our president, Katie Farrell, and Kat Lowe. Welcome to all five of you. And it's kind of like a Brady Bunch tonight, but and we don't normally have this many people on the live stream, but I'm so thankful that all of you are here and willing to share your wisdom and expertise with our audience tonight. First of all, I'd like to just give each of you an opportunity. If there's something else you'd like to share with our audience about yourselves, we'll go around in order. I think Annie, then Caleb, and then Kat, and then Katie, and then lastly, our president.
Sure. Thank you, Todd. Well, thanks everybody for joining and for allowing all of us an opportunity to talk. We talk to each other a lot, so it's a nice opportunity to broaden that audience. I'm Annie Wilson with Capital Consultants. I'm a lobbyist for the Education Association and have been for, goodness, this was my 17th year lobbying for you guys. So number one, thank you very much for that opportunity. And please never be shy throughout this call or otherwise to get questions to us because we want you guys to be knowledgeable so you can participate more in the process.
Good evening, Caleb Mickler. I'm the SCEA Public Affairs Specialist, and in that role, I'm the staff person who gets my marching orders from Kat Lowe and the Legislative Affairs Committee, as well as President Cruz, what gets discussed over the legislative agenda during Representative Assembly. And thankfully, with Capital Consultants as a thought partner to assist me in this effort to make sure what members' voices are heard and we can create legislation that actually impacts the profession for the better.
Hey, I'm Kat Lowe. I'm a teacher, a science teacher in Berkeley County. I'm the Berkeley County Education Association president, so I'm one of the little local presidents, and I'm the legislative chair for the SCEA's legislative agenda, which we got passed at an RA chaired by Dr. Cruz so wonderfully on Saturday. And I look forward to telling everybody what we got in store for our teachers this year and our students.
Hi, good evening. I'm Katie Farrell. I'm part of Capital Consultants and part of the Government Affairs lobbying team, the SCEA, and happy to be here and happy to dive into the legislative agenda of the SCEA.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Dena Cruz, serving as president of the South Carolina Education Association. Yes, recently the doctor part of it as of last month, 2 months ago, almost 2 months now, I've been a doctor. So it's an adjustment. I'm thankful and grateful. And prior to stepping into this role, I served at the elementary school level for 25 years. So this has been my first year serving as your president. It's been an adjustment being out of the classroom and trying to understand everything that has been taking place this legislative season. So the learning never stops, no matter what your position is.
Right. Well, thanks to all of you again for introducing yourselves. Let's just do a quick overview of the bills that are sort of some highlights of the bills. I know we can't go over every single bill they're debating, but what are some of the bills that the SCEA is sort of looking at closely?
I'll
Any-
start.
Okay.
Yeah, because breaking my style. As a legislative recap, there was the reason the SCEA, we wanted to have this dialogue with members and the public because there was lots of education-related bills that were brought up this legislative session that were in turn signed by Governor Henry McMaster, and so we just wanted to make sure because a lot happens, just to make sure folks know what has taken place. Because we see some of the more controversial bills that, of course, we're going to talk about. The main one that comes to mind, I think we'll discuss, is the Student Physical Privacy Act. But there's some positive bills as well that was initiated, be it, when it comes to educator pay, as well as grading floor policy to address that, charter school accountability to make sure that our charter schools here in our great state are aligned to our traditional public schools, and so on and so forth. So those are the several things that come to mind for me. Certainly anyone else, things you want to discuss, and I'm sure Todd will segue more into that.
Yeah, does anybody else want to share some thoughts on just a general overview of the bills that are being debated?
Sure. Yeah, Todd, maybe if I could just for a second, our timing is kind of unique, especially as compared to when we've done these meetings in the past. So I think it's at least worth noting we are actually still in session currently. So we do not have a budget yet. So a lot of the things that we're talking about may or may not be finalized. So I think Katie's going to go into some detail on specific legislation. But as it relates to timing, technically the legislature is still in a special session that was called back in by Governor McMaster. So again, their work is not complete. And then last night, of course, we had the primary elections for our statewide offices, including governor, attorney general, and superintendent of education, as well as every member of the South Carolina State House who had primary opposition. So we can get into a little bit more detail on those and on the primary elections, maybe if we have time, but wanted to kind of set the stage because our House of Representatives and our governor's office and some of the other offices may look a lot different. So as we're talking about this session going into next session, I just wanted to flag that for everybody as Katie goes into a little bit more specific detail.
Thank you, Annie.
And I'm thankful for you bringing that up, Annie, just about the fact that the legislators that we worked with this year may not be the same ones going into the next legislative season. But even as Caleb was mentioning some of the laws that came about, one of the ones that one would not think there would be big concerns over would be the one about the grading floors. We were in support of this just based on what educators that I've worked with over the years and other teachers have said in terms of being told that they had to give students a minimum score instead of what they actually earned. And that is a deficit. It doesn't help the children, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school. It doesn't help the students by them not seeing what they have actually made on assessments or what their actual averages are. But as I was talking with different legislators, their concerns with it was about if a district didn't comply with it, that some of their funding would be cut. And as I've been learning about different things, a lot of the compliance issue is tied to the money issue instead of complying because it's the law or it's just the right thing to do. And my conversations in terms of the grading floors was parents need to see exactly where their students are to be able to have those conversations with the classroom teacher, with administrators, with support staff. So that way, if there are deficits with a child, they're able to help them early on instead of kind of passing them along with given a bare minimum grade just to get them through. It's not helping a student by them not actually seeing where they are and being able to build up the courage to ask for help, to do the same thing.
Thank you, President Bruce. Katie or Kat?
Yeah, this was a little different session than past sessions that I've experienced. Normally we are in a rush to try and do whatever we can to stop whatever new voucher bill would be coming forward. And in fact, this year we saw a little bit of a pullback by the Senate. And I'm sure there's our folks that are up in Columbia all the time can probably speak a little bit more to that. But this session was a little bit different because we did not have to engage the vouchers as much as we normally do. So we were able to, talk about some other things that we'd like to see happen in our classrooms. And so overall, I thought this past go round was a little less fireworks. Maybe that's not the best way to put it, but a little bit less.
Katie,
that was good, but there was. I'm sorry, Katie. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, because I was just going to say, with this being my first time, and I think probably the most controversial, the concerning bill that I would say that I saw a lot of talk just from the education standpoint was the physical safety one, in terms of gender usage in the restroom.
Yes.
That we had, as I was there observing, a wide range of people came out, whether in support or opposed to it. What I wish would happen is, prior to a lot of these bills getting to subcommittees or even being written out, is that someone talks to a lot of educators, like have town halls and things, to find out if some of the concerns are real concerns, or if it might be an outlier. Like, everything isn't an issue everywhere. So it's about finding out truly what the needs are statewide, as opposed to this might be something that's taking place within a specific district or just at a specific school. But the implementation of this, we are waiting to see how the State Department will direct our schools, our administrators, and our teachers in terms of how is this supposed to be implemented. Even with for that bill, and a less controversial one with the recess. More time has been added on, but more time also means more people resources.
Right.
Are we adding more time to a school day, to a school week? And where exactly is that time coming from? Because you don't want to cut from anywhere else. And yes, we do want our children to be physically active. We want them engaged. But for that extra physical education time, that takes more resources and more time within the school day. So we're curious to see, just in terms, how is this going to be implemented? What's the direction that our districts and our schools will receive so that they can be successful with these new laws?
Have they given a time around that, a sort of proposed time? Because I know, like, I just saw my son's kindergarten teacher posted that the average elementary student gets about 18 minutes of recess time, but the neuroscience and the psychologists that study this say that children need 60 minutes or more each day. Is there a proposed amount of time that that they're talking about for the unstructured, self-directed recess?
Yes. So for the legislation that just passed this year, House Bill 3195, the current requirement is every public school student in kindergarten through 5th grade receive at least 150 minutes of physical education and physical activity each week. They're clarifying that the majority be PE. They're adding into this legislation that students in 6th through 8th grade be provided at least 60 hours of physical education each school year. They're also including that every student in kindergarten through 5th grade must also receive at least 20 minutes of outdoor recess daily, in addition to existing required time. And that recess cannot be included as their required PE time. Recess can't be taken away as punishment. PE can't be taken away as punishment. And it also clarifies that volunteer staff can help with recess. There's a couple other provisions in there, but it does specifically state the required times of unstructured recess.
And is there any funding? I mean, I think that's President Cruz brings up a really good point. It's like sometimes they have these mandates, but then there's no increased funding or support for schools to actually implement what they're asking them to do.
And that's what's interesting, even with what Annie was saying about the fact that this legislative session is not over. They're currently discussing the budget. The new school year begins, the new fiscal year for many school districts is July 1st. That's just in a few weeks. So many districts, especially the ones who've already kind of guaranteed pay increases for support staff and for their certified staff, have had to do so just based on what they're able to do, because there isn't a budget that has been passed to know what each district is going to be getting to help supplement the incomes, including, the mandates that the legislators have put forth. So even with the Physical Safety Act, with the unstructured recess, with the extra time for PE, that takes funding because that takes people. All schools aren't on the beneficial side of having volunteers that are willing to come in to do extra. We do, even with the fact that many of our elementary schools, our teachers have an unencumbered lunch. So we've needed volunteers for that period of time. So that's a lot of asking people to volunteer to do stuff.
Right. What are some of the bills that are outstanding that we're looking to potentially reinitiate next year?
So there's one that Representative Robert Williams had a bill for educational support pay that we want to see come back again, and for us to work with him in terms of looking at what's the average minimum salary for education support staff across the state, so that we can come up with something comparable for everybody. We finally have gotten our minimum teacher salary scale above $50,000 if it passes in the budget. But we also need something for our support staff. We don't want them forgotten. They do just as much work as our certified teachers. They're there every day. They're doing the extra work. They're working right alongside with our certified teachers. They need a wage that they can live off of. We also have our Safe and Supportive Schools Act, which is a discipline bill, if you want to call it that. We were thankful that the legislators saw that discipline is an issue within our schools and have tried to put something forth to help support that. But we want something that's going to help address some root causes and help our students be successful. That, yes, we know that, there are consequences for actions, but we also want our students to be successful. There should be consequences, but when they come back to the classroom, we want them to be able to be successful. We want their behavior to be where they can be able to learn, and they're not interfering with their learning or the learning of other students, or interfering with the teaching that's taking place in the classroom. So the bill that we've put together addresses all of that, and we want to work with the legislators to get that to the floor and to get the funding for it, so that way all of our students can be successful, and so our teachers, our educators can be able to teach.
I love that, because I know you speak to so many teachers and they're struggling with that discipline, and yet there's also you can become draconian in that to the point where you're doing OSS all the time, and that just increases the school to prison pipeline, and it's not, like you said, really addressing the root causes. It's just an accountability system without really investigating what is causing that. And so what we've seen happen in the past is you just have this loop of the same students getting in trouble, going to ISS or OSS, and then coming back, and it's just a continual loop without really diagnosing what's going on with that student. So I appreciate the fact that you're trying to find that balance of, let's have some consequences and let's support our teachers who need strong discipline, but also making sure we're supporting those students so they can be successful. I love that. I love that
Yes.
balance. Does anybody else have any comments on the bills that are currently being debated, or the bills that are potentially being reinitiated for next year?
Well, I just want to be clear that when I'm talking about there not being any fireworks, I mean educational bills. There was a lot of fireworks going on with our redistricting and everything. It was as crazy as it's ever been on those types of fronts. I just want to make sure that I was awake and aware just a couple of weeks ago, but it is really problematic that we haven't had the budget passed, and that is because I just want to remind everybody, when we sign our contracts, we don't know how much we've been paid, and so for those districts like mine, we are now in June, and I do not know what my pay is going to be. And so, for those educators, for support staff, for everybody out there that still doesn't know what they're going to be paid, this is kind of one of those moments where you got to hold on to trust.
Right.
So we're kind of all on bated breath on that one.
Mm.
I think that's a good flag, Kat. I would say about some of these issues that we have been dealing with and ultimately are going to continue to deal with. The one thing that I've noticed over the past couple of years is I think our message really is being heard. By people I mean legislators, are very interested in hearing from teachers and hearing kind of different priorities. And Kat, I like the point that you brought up. This year has given us a little bit different opportunity. While there are those who would still push for additional educational trust fund dollars and voucher programs, we haven't seen that push as much this year. And that has given them the opportunity, and us the opportunity, to change our messaging and talk about some other things that are affecting teachers and students really in the classroom. So discipline is a huge part of that. The other one we wanted to make sure to talk about is there has been a lot of increased scrutiny on charter schools, which is something we've been advocating for years. That has not fallen on deaf ears. There has been a tremendous amount of attention to that, and a bill actually did get passed, which is that's incredibly difficult to do anyway in today's day and age and in today's legislative climate. But a charter school accountability bill was passed. We can go into detail on that if y'all like, but I think the big message there is that our voices were heard. There was certainly some abuses in that system, and legislators were keen, and really the legislative leadership was keen to get those addressed and make sure some of those things were not being taken advantage of. Same could be said for some of the educational trust fund dollars. Again, the voucher program. So the legislature, the Senate in particular, really came down hard this year on the State Department of Education for allowing some of those dollars to be spent for some homeschool students, which was absolutely not their intention. So the fact that they called the Department of Education to the carpet to have those conversations, to be very public about their that disagreement with that decision by the Department of Education was very evident. So a lot of education issues that maybe you don't see in terms of bills that made it over that finish line, but education certainly has been a priority, and in those issues, I think again that are going to continue to to go forward. We saw some real on the discipline issue, and Dr. Cruz spoke to this, but I mean, some very, although they weren't doing what we wanted them to do exactly, the passion behind legislators wanting to do something about discipline and the travails that teachers are dealing with in the classroom was really refreshing. And if y'all did not have the benefit of seeing some of those speeches, we can certainly work with Caleb and get you those links, because people are getting a sense of what is happening in your classrooms, and that's the product of advocacy.
Thank you, Annie. Katie or Caleb, any thoughts?
It was really great to see when it came to the lawmakers addressing behavior. Mind you, did it come somewhat at the 11th hour? Yeah, but it was great to see, and definitely was very fruitful for Dr. Cruz, myself, and my colleague, Marietta Watson. Were able to have very positive conversations with several of those legislators who had those speeches on the floor, and what inspired them to create several bills that kind of were addressing what we wanted to do, albeit again, it wasn't the same approach that we want to target, because again, we want to do something that is, of course, creates safe and supportive learning environments for all, but as well as Dr. Cruz indicated earlier on, what addresses those issues early on, instead of just like what you indicated, Todd, just pushing those kids to the side, that there's somebody else's problem, not ours, because we don't want that to occur.
Thank you, Caleb. I want to give President Cruz an opportunity. I know you are incredibly busy and have some other things you need to do tonight. As president, you're running around the entire state and doing your best to fight for educators and public education. So I know you have a time limit here, so I just wanted to give you one last opportunity to speak before you need to sign off.
Well, I want everybody to just stay aware of what's going on. We have every week, especially during the regular legislative session, our member matters, and we go over the legislation that applies to education. We need everybody in the know with what's going on, and to reach out to your legislators, regardless of whether you elected them, whether you voted for them. Once they're in position, they represent everyone in their area. They need to hear from you. It's not for them to go to the Capitol and just represent their interests and their thoughts. They need to hear from those that they represent. It's important for educators, for you to get your voices out there, to speak to those who are making the laws. We have our lobby days. We need you to come. That doesn't need to be the only time that you're speaking, but we need you to come and speak to them. They're people just like us. We've had the opportunity of sitting in a closed room with just a few legislators, just to talk about, even with the discipline bill, with our proposals, and with some of our other educational colleagues. One would never think that actually takes place, but it does. But it would only happens because of the relationships that we've built with our legislators, with the ones that represent us. It is so important. Don't take it for granted. Some of them are your neighbors. Talk to them. This is our livelihood, and it's our kids' lives, our future.
Right.
We need to talk to those who are making laws that are affecting all of us. So I just leave you with that. You can have your summer break and chill and all of that, but we're still waiting to figure out what's going to happen with the budget.
Right.
We want to make sure that everybody's getting, what especially the governor asked for $50,500 as starting salary. So we want to make sure that that's happening. In addition to, we're hoping also that they're not forgetting about our support professionals, because they need some increase as well. So please stay aware. Ask all the questions that you need to ask. But if we don't know the answers, we'll find somebody who does. Because I don't have any problems with calling Annie, Katie, or Richard because I don't know it all.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we underestimate the power of advocacy, and our voice. I think educators sometimes also we're exhausted, but we have to find the time to come together and use our voice to create the kind of change and that we deserve, and not only for ourselves, but like you said, for our support staff. When you look at the pay of support staff, 15, 16 bucks an hour,
Yeah.
for the importance of the work that they do. And when you look at inflation and the cost of gas and groceries and everything has gone up, that $15, $16 is what $7 or $8 used to be. And
Right.
it's really important for us to advocate and have solidarity, not only for classroom teachers, but for our support staff. So I appreciate that. And
Thank
President Cruz,
you.
thank you so much for your time tonight and for everything you're doing to fight for public education and educators and students across the state of South Carolina.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate each and every one of you and all the work and the collaboration that we all do together. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, President Cruz. So one of the things that Dr. Cruz mentioned was the lobby days. And my understanding is that the board approved 3 lobby days. Can, I guess, Caleb or somebody else share what those days are?
Yeah, I can certainly speak on them. So we're second year now. We're going to do 3 lobby days because we do, as the president mentioned, want to give more opportunity that works with folks' schedule. So we're going to do 3. The first one will be January 27th of 2027. So that's about 2 weeks into the upcoming legislative session starting in the new year. And again, they're open to all members, all those who have some capacity of work within public education. But we are trying to have that be more focused towards our aspiring educators who are either at a local community college, university, etc., who are ed majors or minors who want to pursue the profession. But again, that's open to all on January 27th. The next one will be February 17th, and the last one will be March 31st. And again, it's open to all, but that third and final one on March 31st, because it's kind of the springtime, a little warmer weather than the winter. We're going to have that kind of geared towards our retired educators, because what's fascinating about this association is from high school to retirees, there's a place for you here. So we just will be mindful, be it if a rising senior who wants to declare an education major or minor, those who are currently active in the profession, even those who are soon to retire or are retired and still working. You have a home here with the SCEA, and that's why we're having these lobby days for you to advocate on just some concerns that you may face that, frankly, our lawmakers may not know fully. Because as Dr. Cruz indicated, a lot of the conversations that I've had, the more fruitful ones were definitely when I talked to a lawmaker and they said, oh, I met with so-and-so who's a constituent and who's active in that local. So definitely don't be hesitant to reach out to them, to come to one of meetings that you may have locally. And certainly you can reach out to me, Kat, and or Dena Cruz for just how to initiate those conversations, get the contacts for those said folks, and to create the dialogue for the necessary change needed in our profession.
Thank you, Galen. Speaking of Kat Lowe, Kat, I understand you were at the RA, or what we call Representative Assembly. I think sometimes we use the abbreviations and people don't necessarily know what those things are. But can you talk a little bit about what the RA is and what got passed the RA for the SCEA this past weekend?
Yeah, I think the one great thing about the SCEA and the NEA in general is that this is a little D democracy. Like we're gonna only move forward the things that we vote on and agree on together. And so on Saturday, representatives from locals and myself as the chair for the legislative agenda headed on up to Columbia so that we could learn a little Robert's rule, and vote for the things that we want to see move forward. And so I know the executive leadership met and went through the budget and made specific votes on that. And I think Caleb might be a little bit better to talk about exactly what went through. But for us, the legislative agenda was passed, and this is a large document that helps us, helps guide the membership as to what kind of legislation we are looking to support and boost and be a part of creating. And so this is, I think this is my third year as chair. I do think that I've been on more years than that, and trying to think back further makes me think that time's not real. So I won't do that part. But what we do try and do is we try and break it up into three basic pieces. The first piece is essentially the money. I think that this is sometimes the piece that teachers, educators, support staff are the most not necessarily comfortable talking about, because it is a conversation about pay, but larger than that, it is a conversation about how we're going to utilize taxpayer dollars, how taxpayer dollars are going to come into the schools, and just strategies that we would like to see. So, from the money position, I would say, currently the funding formula that we have is not adequate. It does not fully fund. This year and last year, they've kind of tried to come up with some patches to make up the difference on those things. I know districts like mine, Berkeley County, saw less money come in due to that, and so we're not fully funding. Another thing is, like, how does the tax money come in? So that's also a conversation about tax abatement and how we see our larger corporations making deals with our local county councils that circumvent the funding that schools would see. And so we have worked with organizations like Good Jobs First, kind of letting us in on the bad news that we've lost a good bit of passive income from those tax abatements, totaling to about $3.2 billion. So, essentially the section that is the money kind of gets into the weeds and talks about what we need to be aware of, what we should be asking for, and what we should be pushing for. The second part is essentially the people, the personnel, teachers, administrators, support staff, what they should have as far as rights and employment protections. For me, it's always a big one, because it delves into contracts and what we should be asking for, because I think we should have a good deal, and currently that's not what our contract looks like. The third piece is the actual learning. We get a lot of bills that come through where, people want to talk about what the kids need to be learning in the classroom. And so I think it's important that we have a document that the membership has all agreed upon that covers all of those pieces and parts, like how we would like students to have a global understanding, a possibility for liberal arts, for STEM, for STEAM. I mean, Caleb was in the room. I think the best discussion really was a discussion about what kind of learning the kids are going to get. And so it's really great to be a part of those types of conversations. Even if we do get caught up in the weeds every once in a while, it's a discussion about what great things we want to try and do for these great kids in South Carolina. And so it's a giant document, and we got it passed. Everyone was in agreement for it, and we will be using that as kind of a guide to move us forward. But yeah, giant document.
Well, thank you so much for that update, Kat. And real quickly, for members who may be watching who are wondering, how do I become part of the Representative Assembly? Can somebody share how someone who's interested in that can learn about the process?
It's the procedure is simple. It's like a classroom. You raise your hand and you're selected. I mean, first of all, we've got a couple of different avenues. I mean, if you're hearing this in whatever social media stream you're looking at and you're a member and you want to be a part of it, you can literally click on Caleb's name or my name or Dr. Cruz, and just contact us. And it really is just that simple. Because at first, when we're putting these things together, we want input. We want to know what people's concerns are. I will mention that with this legislative agenda, it's not really geared towards prioritization, like how we're going to prioritize what things people want. It's just a really broad document. And that's why some of the work that Caleb and Mary Rita and our staff do is so important when they send out surveys about what members want to see as far as action getting to their classrooms. So there's that kind of small ball play where if you're just looking to maybe fill out a survey, let us know what you'd like to see happen. That's one way to do it. And like I said, the other way is you can raise your hand and you can do what I do, which is just absolutely toil over these types of tasks lovingly so that we can have some change here. Right. I would click on my name. There you go.
Thank you. One question I had going back to the grade floor bill, I think that's House Bill 5073. When I was teaching, the reasoning that our administration gave for the grade floor was at the high school level anyways, is you had, for a semester, you had 2 9 weeks. So in the first 9 weeks, if the student actually did earn a 20, so if we go back to President Cruz's comments on, giving them what they actually earn. So I give a student a 20. Then in the second 9 weeks, the student knows that even if they get a 100, when you average those 2 grades together, you can only get a 60 if you got 100. So what happens in the second 9 weeks to that student who's coming to school every day in your class knowing that they can't pass? Often they become a behavioral issue, and there's no incentive for them to do any work moving forward. Is there any sort of way to sort of be honest about what these students are learning, and also take into consideration that point, which I think is a fair point?
I mean, as a classroom teacher, I would tell you I find this bill very, very interesting. Because I think it comes in conflict with what veteran teachers do all along. And that is, I don't want to say I grade how I want to, but there is a lot of stuff in state policy that says that we're supposed to take accurate grading as we go. And so I'm certainly not opposed to a bill that says that there is no grading floor. And maybe that just provides a little bit more confidence to teachers to kind of stand their ground and say right. No, this is the ground and this is what the bill says. Because I don't want to do the I close my door and nothing impacts me. I just mean it in the sense that it'll be interesting to see how the friction happens. And what I mean by that is is it because this bill is out there now? Like I said, it gives teachers that have had these concerns a little bit more traction to push up the chain and say to, their admin who's been sitting in the parent meeting with them, or the district office that is, being merciless about whatever PLCs and putting grading scores up that make people feel a certain level of stress.
Right.
To make sure that their grades look like their colleagues' grades, even though, I would tell you, any veteran would tell you that you get that class where it's well, all these kids are going to get an A, and it's that, what are you going to do?
Right. Right.
So, I am curious as to how this all kind of plays out. And again, how it trickles down into the actual classroom will be something that I'll be kind of watching.
Yeah. My thought, and I do not speak for the SCEA, but my thought is if the sooner we can move away from grades, the better, and just have standards. And once you've mastered that standard, then that's on your report card. And then the parents and the student know exactly what they've mastered. And you can go in a sequential order like that without, and I understand that a grade kind of gives you leverage, but so does you have to master a certain number of standards in order to get credit for that course. I'd like to see us try to move beyond grades and also rigid timelines. So 90 days or 100 days for a class, Because if a student can complete the class in fewer days, why are we making them do all the extra days? And if a student, for example, maybe it takes them 110 days to complete algebra, why would we do 90 days and then make them do another 90 if they get a 62? It does, to me, that doesn't make sense. But does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Todd, I was just going to add on to what Kat said. It is interesting. It will be interesting, period. And some school administrators in particular really push back on this. What I would say is that the bill as passed really keeps the discretion with the teacher. So as I just heard some veteran classroom teachers, my mom and my brother also being former classroom teachers, I can tell you this bill thankfully leaves that discretion with the teacher. What it does is it would prohibit the school from having a minimum grade policy.
Got it.
So that battle that Kat predicted, I'm sure that's going to happen, but the bill as written leaves discretion with the teacher.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. That's good to know.
And just like, again, and to me, I think this is another moment where you say like, okay, this is where you need the SCEA. This is where you need membership. This is when you need good teacher neighbors, because, I could be talking and sound real cavalier, like I do what I want in my room. But in the end, having the knowledge of knowing that there is support coming from the State House, and like I said, I've other policies that I'm aware of because I've been teaching for so long. It provides that opportunity for that teacher to own their classroom, use their voice. And the one thing I think that and this is kind of what I've discovered by working in this organization, is how important it is for everyone to recognize that you're not alone.
Right.
You're not going to figure this all out on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do that. And so not only is it important that the bill exists, and that it passed, it's important that members like ourselves push out that idea that like you have these support sitting out here. You're not alone.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And Kat, I want to go back to your point, the lowercase d, the democracy that the SCEA embodies is so important, because I do think sometimes educators look at an organization like ours and think they have to agree with every single policy, or that they have to come with a certain political mindset. And what you've said and what I've seen demonstrated at the local, the state, and the national level is you really have a wide range of opinions and positions on a variety of issues, and it's the ability to come together to talk through those things and then decide, okay, what do we want to support here? What is the best way forward? What is the best potential outcome for educators and students? And we can talk through that, and having diverse voices actually, I think, is helpful in coming to better policy.
Yeah, I mean, like just as simple as how a school works, I mean, I'm some kids' favorite teacher. I am some kids not so much, and it's not so much that I teach like everybody else. It's just that I could teach different enough, and we are a big safety net. And what does that net look like? Well, the strings are everywhere, right? But they're crossing each other. Everybody's got a role to play here. And so a lot of the things that we end up talking about, even on this legislative agenda, does not categorically fit in an R box or a D box. Like it's not Republican, it's not Democrat. Like these are the things that impact our classroom and that are worth a good conversation, right? And so if we don't have those conversations, or not enough people have those conversations, then it doesn't really represent the group as a whole. And so I think the SCEA is structured allows for, and I'll just keep using that. Maybe it's my physics way of seeing the world, but like you got to have some friction for this thing to move at all, right? I mean, this isn't friction like friction is like we need things to take traction. We need things to move, and to do that, we are actually going to have these conversations where, we find our way to get on the same page together. During lobby day, I'll, I'll talk to anybody. I don't mind at all. You're getting a copy of my contract. We're going to have a conversation of a couple things, like we don't have to agree to push in the same direction,
Right.
and the same direction should always be a conversation about how we help these kids get a chance to be the best they can be. And, I am on the ground, classroom teachers are on the ground, support staff are on the ground doing that pushing. And so, it's important to legislators to feel like they are, like the things that they are doing are giving support, right? They are not actively, most of them are not actively engaged in a conversation to cause chaos.
Right.
They very much want to come back to their constituents and say, gosh darn it, teacher, there's $25 more for you at the beginning of the school year for you to buy more paper towels. There's just going to be stuff that hits the ground and can be really helpful.
Right. Right.
And so like you were saying, is like, it's political because that's how things get moving and going. It's not partisan because it impacts all of us,
Right.
We do have to be mindful of who we are talking to. People do see things through their party. So I don't want to be a Pollyanna and be like, no, they'll take it for, no. There's some value in having a focused conversation with someone with, their political thought process being at the front end, because that's what got them in that position, so, we can't sit and say that it's not real. But what's real for us is in our legislative agenda about making sure that we have funding, by making sure that we're taking care of our people, right? And making sure that the kids are learning the things that our educators who are, talented as get out, really looking to, again, helping these kids be the best they can be.
Absolutely. We are coming up on the end of our time. It's been a wonderful conversation. I want to give Annie, Catey, and Caleb one final chance if there's anything else you'd like to say before we close out.
I think we covered a lot of what we wanted to talk about tonight. I think the only thing we had on our agenda was the school board ethics bill, Senate Bill 70, that passed this year. I think Dr. Cruz may have briefly mentioned it, but this legislation, the goal of it is to promote high ethical standards with school board members. So this will be implemented throughout the end of this year, but currently there is new board member training that's required, but there's no statutory requirement or statutory penalty if new school board members don't complete this training. So the biggest change is this legislation implements a statutory penalty. So the new school board members could be removed from the board if they don't complete the training. And the training is actually for new board members or re-elected board members. And the statute actually delineates what the training should provide for board members. So I think that was the other bill that we wanted to cover tonight. And if there's any questions on that, please reach out to the SCEA, and we're happy to answer any questions as it relates to that legislation.
Thank you, Catey. Caleb, Randy?
Todd, the last thing I would really just encourage people to do is to vote. We do have I know if you're on this call, if you're watching this, it's because you're engaged, not just in education, but very civically minded in South Carolina. So we are a primary driven state. So I would encourage you, today was the end of the primary portion until the runoffs, but the runoffs are on June 23rd. If you have questions about your eligibility to vote in those, it's much broader than people realize. Even if you didn't vote in the primary, you can still vote in the runoff. It is very important. We have not just the governor's race, the attorney general, all these state house races. So lots of people will forget about June 23rd. I hope that nobody on this call will.
Excellent point. Thank you, Annie. And Caleb, any final words?
Just to echo the same sentiments that all these great folks have indicated. Of course, it is important. This upcoming general election in November, all 124 House candidates are on the ballot. And definitely, as Annie indicated, let's just be mindful, especially in these primaries, these runoffs, of who truly are those pro-public education champions. And if you have any questions or concerns, who they may be, do reach out to me or anyone from the SCEA, for we do have report cards that show where they have stand on legislation tied to education that the SCEA supports or does not support, and the rationale behind which way. So that's all.
Okay. Thank you, Caleb. Well, I appreciate all of you. Appreciate your time, your thoughts, your wisdom, your experience, and everything you're doing to support the SCEA's legislative agenda this year and throughout the year. So thank you so much for your time, and hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. It was always awkward when you've got a lot of people and I'm trying to pull them all off the screen. You have to do it one at a time. But I want to thank Cat Lowe, President Dena Cruz, Caleb Mickler, Katie Farrell, and Annie Wilson for sharing their time and talents tonight to talk about the SCEA's legislative agenda. And you can always find out more about the SCEA at the SCEA.org. And right now, if you are interested in joining the SCEA, you can do that through our early enrollment period. That means that if you join the SCEA right now, you would get the rest of June, all of July, all of August at no cost, and you wouldn't start paying dues until September. You can do that right now at jointhescea.org. And the more voices we have together, and then you look at this graphic right up at the top, it says, together a stronger voice. When we do try to do things alone, I encourage you to do that if you have to. But when we come together collectively and have thousands and thousands of educators speaking with one voice, when we do that together, we have more power and we can create more change. We can increase wages, we can improve working conditions, and we can fight for the kind of schools that all educators and students deserve. So go to jointhescea.org right now, and you can join our movement. Coming up next week, a week from tonight, at 6 o'clock, I'll be speaking with James Baraz about joy in education. He's the author of Awakening Joy. And I think you'll really, this is a really uplifting, positive live stream we have coming up. I think you're going to really love to hear from James. So please join us next week right here live on Facebook or YouTube. Thanks again to the guests for tonight. And thank you for tuning in and your questions. We appreciate our members and all of the educators in South Carolina. We want to encourage you this summer to really take good care of yourselves, get the rest that you need, and then join the SCEA so we can fight for a better public education system for you and your students. Thank you so much and have a great evening. Bye, everybody.